The Great Ostrich Escape. Deep in the countryside, past the rolling green hills and the winding river, there was a very unusual farm. It wasn't a farm for cows, or sheep, or even pigs. No, this was Mr. Wobblebottom's ostrich farm, home to the silliest, fastest, and most mischievous ostriches in the world. Mr. Wobblebottom, the farm's owner, had one dream, to train his ostriches to be the world's first racing ostriches. He had a whole racetrack built just for them. But there was one little problem: the ostriches were too silly to follow the rules. They would start a race and suddenly decide to dance, chase butterflies, or just sit down and refuse to move. It drove Mr. Wobblebottom completely bonkers. The trouble begins. One morning, as Mr. Wobblebottom was feeding the ostriches, his mischievous lead ostrich, Speedy McFeathers, had an idea. Speedy was the fastest, but he didn't like rules. He whispered to the other ostriches, "Let's make a great escape." With a great flap. 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 Speedy launched himself over the farm fence. The other ostriches gasped. "Did you see that?" squawked one ostrich. "He flew," shouted another. Inspired by Speedy, the other ostriches bounced, wobbled, and wobbly bounced over the fence, following their fearless leader into town. Chaos in the town. The quiet little town of Featherton was not prepared for an ostrich stampede. Mrs. Pumpernickel, the bakery owner, was placing fresh loaves of bread on the windowsill when, whoosh! An ostrich snatched a baguette and kept running. At the barber shop, Mr. Snip was giving old Mr. Higgins a haircut when, zoom! An ostrich ran by, and Mr. Snip accidentally shaved a zigzag in Mr. Higgins' hair. Over at the ice cream parlor, little Timmy was just about to take a big lick of his triple scoop chocolate cone when, slurp! An ostrich swiped it away with its beak. "The ostriches have taken over the town," screamed Mayor Featherbottom, running in circles. The chase. Mr. Wobblebottom arrived, panting and out of breath. He waved his big red farm hat and shouted, "Come back here, you wobbly-feathered troublemakers." The ostriches screeched to a halt. Speedy McFeathers turned to face Mr. Wobblebottom. "Oh no, he's using the hat." Now, Mr. Wobblebottom's red hat was magical, or at least, the ostriches thought so. Every time he waved it, they somehow ended up back on the farm. "Run for your lives!" Speedy squawked. The ostriches bolted in all directions. Some hid behind lamp posts. Others tried to squeeze into small spaces, like a mailbox or a telephone booth. One particularly confused ostrich tried to blend in with a group of old ladies in the park by wearing a bonnet. Mr. Wobblebottom sighed and hat waved with all his might. Like magic, the ostriches all wobbled, wiggled, and wobbly wiggled their way back home. A new idea. Back on the farm, the ostriches sat in a row, looking guilty. Mr. Wobblebottom scratched his chin. Maybe racing isn't your thing after all. But you do seem to love causing chaos. Then he had a brilliant idea. The next day, he put up a brand new sign, Wobblebottom's Amazing Ostrich Circus. Instead of racing, the ostriches now performed dancing, juggling, and even acrobatics. The farm became famous for its hilarious ostrich performances, and people came from all over just to see the world's wackiest birds. And so, the Great Ostrich Escape turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to Mr. Wobblebottom's farm. The end.